Hello, friends. Today's guest on the podcast is Justin Brown. Justin is the founder of Rhino Skin Solutions, a company built to provide high-performance skincare products to support an active lifestyle. We talked about how Justin's business was affected by the coronavirus and what he did to stay afloat and keep his company moving forward during these challenging times. We talked about best practices for healing dry skin, how to use dry and spit to dial in skin friction for different rock types, about skincare leading up to a climbing trip, about best taping options when taping splits or gobies, and some interesting ideas for how to clean your climbing shoes to keep your rubber fresh and sticky. We talked about how Justin thinks about growing his business and why it's important to him to keep things simple and why growth doesn't necessarily mean more complicated. And we also talked about Justin's climbing, about his progression through all the 513s at Smith Rock and climbing his first 514, about the relationship between greatness and insanity, and Justin's newfound interest in mixed martial arts and jiu-jitsu, and some of the carryovers from jiu-jitsu to rock climbing and vice versa. In full disclosure, I wanted to be clear that I do some work for Justin on his Amazon stuff, but as I've said before on the podcast, I only started doing that because I love the company and I use their products every day. I believe in what these guys are doing, and I think these guys make the best skincare products in the industry, and I want to see them succeed. I thought I knew a lot about Justin and about skincare going into this conversation, but I still got a ton out of it, and I expect there will be at least a couple juicy nuggets for you guys in this one, even for the most hardened skin abuse specialists. I think you guys will like it. Please enjoy this skin-friendly conversation with Justin Brown.
Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it.
Feel good?
Do I feel good?
Yeah.
Yeah, feel great.
Need anything?
No, I got my bubbly water.
You got your bubble water?
Yeah.
All right, we're ready to roll. Hi, Justin.
Oh, you caught me right as I was drinking. Hey, Steven.
Thanks for sitting down.
Sure, my pleasure.
It was fun to check out the shop the other day. I hadn't really been in to see what was up with the Rhino Skin Solutions shop in a while, and we had a great conversation. And it was really interesting to hear about your experience in the last couple months with COVID. Mm-hmm. I hadn't realized that it had hit you guys as hard as it has, and a really great new product came out of it. And it was really interesting to see how adaptable you were and how you were able to pivot during that time. But I'd love to hear about that. What was your early experience with the COVID thing? What were some of the challenges that came up for Rhino with that?
Yeah, I mean, the immediate challenge was the drastic drop in business and all of our wholesale accounts going away, and
Climbing gyms stopped ordering product.
yeah, climbing gyms, brick and mortar stores. Yeah, everybody just like crawled into their little turtle shell and like, all right, we're gonna wait it out in here. We'll call you when we need you. And yeah, it was a little scary. I think the day everything shut down, I was trying to go to sleep and I was just, eyes open in bed, doing math. Like, okay,
Crunching numbers.
I've got X amount in the Rhino account, and I used to do it out of the house just a year ago, and so there's a lot less bills. And this is the first business I've owned, and yeah, just doing the math of like, okay, every month I'm going to be responsible for this, including employees, and like, how long is it going to take to go to zero? And is that something that I'm okay doing? And eventually I just went to sleep and went into work the next day and chatted with Miranda, my shop manager, and we just got to talking about the business. And I've never been one to just like accept the trajectory, I think. Just being in the restaurant business, whether it's finding a job or running out of ingredients in the middle of service or something, you just have to make it happen. Like, restaurants go out of business, or you run out of eggs, or...
You were head chef for a bunch of years?
Yeah. I was in the restaurant industry for a little over a decade, I guess.
Okay.
running restaurants to prep cook and washing dishes occasionally. But yeah, so in like the restaurant industry, it's a hustle for sure. So I just kind of like stepped back and was like, what can I do to make this happen? And just reached out to a couple local businesses, and my father-in-law, like a month before, was like, you guys should make hand sanitizer. I was like, nah, there's so many hand sanitizers out there. But, it came around and I was like, yeah, maybe we should do this. We have all the ingredients that we need. Luckily, plenty of bottles to put it in. And yeah, just kind of made it happen. And luck had it that we got it into Whole Foods, which helped a ton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was interesting to hear. I think you said that you got your first Whole Food check, and a little quote from you said, I've still spent more money there than they've spent on me. But
yeah, for sure.
It's definitely helping out. Yeah. And it sounds like that's saved you guys.
It saved us. I don't know if it necessarily saved us, but it enabled us to keep growing in the trajectory we were growing. I think we would have survived. We would have survived. It's not really an option at this point. We would have survived. Rhino would have survived. But we've been around for 5 years, good growth trajectory, and Whole Foods let us kind of continue that trajectory. As long as our previous business comes back and we're able to kind of keep growing that, or if luck has it, get back to where we were with, climbing gyms and rock climbers, we'll just get to keep our trajectory, which would be nice.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like there's potential for even a boost if you guys are able to get a couple other products in Whole Foods.
Yeah. So with hand sanitizer, it was kind of like a needed product, so they kind of rushed the process. They have like a needed product process, which takes a month instead of 6 months. And the whole time, that was the most paperwork I've done since school. And I was like, oh my God, this is so much work. This is crazy. And there's like tons of ins and outs and different websites with different links you have to go to. But if we could get the repair cream and the massage cream into Pacific Northwest Whole Foods as well, it would definitely be like a game changer for the business and just our ability to keep going and grow. And the bigger we get for a certain amount of time, like we're still very, very small business. It's just like basically 3 of us, with the occasional extra help. So I think we have a lot of growing we can do that will allow us to make a better product still. Whether it's just more consistency or we get better, we're able to purchase better tools to just make the product feel a little better, be a little bit more stable, better bottles. There's a lot of growth that can happen that just needs growth to happen.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay.
That sentence seems weird. Like there's growth that can happen, but we need growth to make it happen.
So that growth trajectory, do you have kind of that end vision in mind with that? Like you already have in your mind, like this equipment would help make a better product. This type of bottles would help make a better product. And we need to grow to continue to get to that stage.
Yeah. There's, like I just bought this much more powerful emulsifier.
Okay.
Right now we use like 15-gallon buckets and a big old stick blender. It's a pretty good machine. But the next step up is this thing that like basically crushes water droplets into tiny little water droplets.
Whoa.
And so that'll help with our heat resistance a lot, and time. After a year, the repair cream especially goes a little slack.
Starts to separate, or?
It doesn't really separate much anymore.
What do you mean by goes slack?
It stays homogenized, but it's like a little looser than it should be. I think it's just the like chemical bonding kind of starts breaking up a little bit. And the emulsification of like, I don't really know. I think it's the chemical bonding it just starts to break up, and this tool will help it stay together a little bit longer.
Okay. I hadn't planned to ask this, but that just made me think of something. I remember early on, I left Rhino Repair in my Subaru, you know, like in the sun or something. It got really hot and separated out. Is there anything people can do to fix that, to reverse that if that happens?
Yes, there is. So the product will separate if it gets to like 125 degrees.
Okay.
And
Wow.
that's easy to get to if it's in your window in your car.
Gotcha.
Basically, what you have to do is take your bottle and put it in a pot of water that's 125 degrees and let it get that hot. And then you can do one of two things. You can either submerge it into ice water and shake it. As it cools down, just keep shaking it. And that'll get the product back to white at least. It'll be like semi-mixed and a little bit stable, but it won't have the same consistency. But if you have a bullet blender or something, you can put it in that while it's 125 degrees and blend it occasionally until it reaches like 105 degrees. And then you'll have the product back. Okay. But if it's like a little 1 ounce bottle, it's just not enough material to really blend.
Gotcha. So. How hard is it to clean the blender and get back to making smoothies after doing that?
I think with like Lexon and stuff, just hot water will be fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I can imagine maybe you'd have like a little mintiness, but if you like scrub it pretty good, hot water, a little soap, you'll be fine.
Cool. I'd be curious to ask more about the hand sanitizer for rock climbers and for their skin. Is it just like a nice to have product, you know, the way that you would use any other hand sanitizer, or is there a way that climbers should be using it or can be using it to help with their recovery and skin?
We've been talking about making a hand sanitizer. We, as me and Andy, my wife, we've been talking about making hand sanitizer for a while. She really wants me to make a soap, which keep your eye out. Gonna make soap.
Cool.
But I didn't really think about making it to improve your rock climbing or skin. It's more just a sanitary product. I don't think I'd recommend like when you're done when you're done rock climbing, apply Rhino hand sanitizer because you probably have a bunch of like small abrasions and stuff on your hands, and I just don't think the alcohol would be great to get in there. Probably soap and water and then Rhino Repair would be the better thing to do. If you do have really oily hands, like greasy hands, like if you're on a climbing trip or you just have naturally more oily hands, it might be really good before you rock climb though, because the alcohol will absorb the oil in your hands before you go climbing.
Okay. Like immediately before?
Yeah, immediately before.
Okay.
Yeah. Kind of similar to, you'd probably see similar effects to what like liquid chalk does. That's one of the reasons it works so well is because it's got alcohol, and the alcohol will absorb oil, and then you have less oil and just chalk. Okay.
Gotcha.
So
cool. Yeah, so the vision behind it was more like lifestyle product for being at camp or stuff like that.
Yeah, just to help reduce bacteria and disease transfer for dirty climbers, whoever else, you know. Like right now, you know, they say don't touch your face, wash your hands all the time, and I know as climbers we're constantly grabbing stuff and putting them in our mouth, and just, you know, we're just touching a lot of stuff, so that should help, I think.
Cool.
Yeah, the science says it should help.
Cool. So I'd like to get into a little bit of skincare. You've covered this stuff. You've covered the nuts and bolts of it pretty extensively elsewhere, so I'll point people to that in the show notes, but I'm going to ask some self-serving questions.
All right.
So I really love Rhino. I've been using your stuff since before we've ever, you know, worked together or anything like that. And I've got pretty sweaty skin. So I use the dry and I use the performance and I use the repair. One thing I've ran into though is, and I've heard you say, you know, dry skin doesn't heal. And for me, when I get my skin using the dry to a point where it feels like nice and calloused and hard, it feels like it doesn't recover the same. And I haven't totally figured out how to navigate that. Do you have thoughts on that?
What's the issues you're seeing that doesn't, like, what doesn't recover? Okay. What are you seeing that you need help recovering from? Is it like splits or is it abrasions or?
It feels like like I'll have more like skin pain. It feels like it hurts more a couple days after that dry, hard skin, which tells me that maybe it just hasn't healed the same way.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I don't have that like kind of supple, flexible skin that also seems to be helpful.
Yeah.
I guess I haven't found like the sweet spot yet.
I think there's a couple ways you could go about it, and it might be like part of the issue might be you have better skin, and so you're able to like crimp harder, and that's causing more pain. It's not necessarily that you have dry skin that's causing more pain.
Okay.
It just might be your output is greater, causing more damage. I would say to fix that, I haven't done like double-blind studies or anything. This is all just based on people asking me very similar questions and seeing how things work out and just like the theoretical workings of the product. But basically, when your skin needs to heal, it pushes moisture to the top. You can see like if you get an abrasion, pretty much immediately or later that day, you get that like little bit of moisture plasma forming.
And that's why you get seepy skin when you have thin tips.
Yeah. There's just less skin there, and your body's like heal, and pushes moisture out.
Okay.
That's like kind of two different things: the plasma and just the straight up moisture, but same kind of concept. So the repair cream's great. End of the day, wash your hands, get all the dirt and bacteria out of there, because you're not going to like heal yourself if there's bacteria in the way.
Okay.
So wash your hands, climb wash Rhino, so Rhino repair, and you could use that as much as you want. I think for me, the most evident that has ever been is going down to like Waco tanks.
Okay.
It's just so dry down there, and the rock's pretty darn gritty, and you do a lot of rock climbing, and the holds are anywhere from tiny little crimpers to full hand slopers. And so we'll go climbing, and at the end of the day, it's just repair until you go to sleep, like 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And it just keeps soaking in and just keep putting it on. And that will bump up your skin humidity a little bit. It'll make a occlusive barrier to help hold moisture in, and it seems to help keep the skin at a nice state and kind of recover overnight. Another way you could go, which I see more and more people practicing, is using dry spray, performance spray, getting like really dry, hard skin, and then they'll use spit right before rock climbing. So they'll enter with really dry skin and then add moisture to it to get that nice flexible skin, but they're not going to be sweating. So they kind of have this known factor, known quantity.
Okay.
I don't know if quantity is the right word, but they know that they're not going to sweat. So they don't have to worry about getting halfway up a rock climb and popping off because their hands are too sweaty.
Okay.
They know that they can add a certain amount of moisture, and that's going to give them flexible, more grippy skin that'll last X amount of time.
Got it. So go like overly hard skin and then add moisture back as needed.
Yeah, maybe not overly hard, but
Oh, yeah. Okay.
the right amount of hard.
Right. That's really interesting. Okay. And you would use that maybe for like glassier holds where you need to be a little bit more pliable, something like that?
Yeah. Or just crimpers. I think for like low radius crimpers, you just want hard skin. But for maybe like flatter, still can be sharp, but flatter crimpers, you want a little bit more give in your skin. And then, as the hole gets bigger, you kind of just want more givey skin. Givey? Is that a word?
More pliable, flexible skin to get more surface area on the hold?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let those little crystals kind of get in there.
Got you.
Yeah. You can kind of see on like limestone versus granite. Like granite, you want hard skin because there's all those crystals that'll just dig in. But limestone, you have those little razor crimpers that suck.
Yeah.
You want hard skin for that, but not too hard because that'll split. But then when you get into like tufas and slightly bigger holds, it's just a lot of times it's such a fine texture that you need damper skin.
Okay. That makes sense. So the spit, it kind of wigs me out as someone that's always used chalk and wants dry hands, and someone who has sweaty hands. But that's a really interesting idea. How do you use spit in a climbing day? Do you use it like right before you put chalk on your hands?
Yep. Yeah, it seems like the best way to go. I am not a spit user because I have really sweaty hands.
Okay.
I've purposely over dried my skin just for the purpose of using spit, just to like see what people are finding. But it seems the best way to use it is, basically right before you go rock climb, you got your shoes on, tied in or whatever, boulder pads placed, spray it on. Don't let it dry completely. It'll start getting like a little bit tacky. And right when that happens, put chalk on.
Okay.
And that seems to work.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool. I'll try that.
Yeah. We have a really good video on our website. Shauna Coxey is explaining her method, and that's basically that.
Awesome. Okay, I'll point people to that. So I've heard you talk about your skincare process on a climbing trip, you know, like when you go to Waco, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
And it sounds like you do dry a couple days prior to the trip, and then you use performance in the evening prior to rock climbing, and you use repair in the evenings prior to rest days.
Again, it's like highly variable on where I'm rock climbing.
Okay.
Just the different needs of the area. The red's different than Smith, which is different than Waco, which is, you know, everywhere's different. I'll use dry and performance leading up. So basically, you can think of your skin on like a 2-week cycle.
Okay.
I want my skin to be where I want for the trip 2 weeks before. Because if my skin's still changing on the way up to like a performance cycle or a trip, it's going to shed because the input's going to be different.
Interesting.
So let's say a month out, for me, I'll just get my skin dry. Like I want full thickness, just dry skin. I want to be like, my skin isn't very flexible. My hands feel super dry, tough. I'll file a bunch because on a climbing trip, you're going to have a lot of that abrasion. And so I'll just start filing my skin, give it a lot of abuse. And that'll help like spur my body into just producing more skin and getting used to this input that you're going to have when you're climbing a lot. Mm-hmm. And then from there, once getting like really dry skin doesn't take that long. It takes like, 4 days or something.
And are you just using dry a bunch?
Yeah, I'll just apply dry.
Multiple times a day or?
1 or 2 times a day.
Okay. For 3 or 4 days?
Yeah, 3 or 4 days.
Okay.
Yep. And so that'll be like full stop, not sweating anymore.
Okay.
I got dry skin. That'll let me file more, just beat my skin down, let it start regenerating faster. And then from that point, I'll start doing, I guess depending on time of year and everything, I'll do dry maybe once a week, performance like 2 or 3 times a week, depending on where I want to be. Sometimes I'll drop the dry and just do performance or maybe add an extra day of performance. And then I'll use repair every night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because when I'm doing that, like skin's really dry, it's not sweating a lot, I'm filing a bunch. If I'm training or rock climbing a bunch to lead up to the trip, I'll get chips and scrapes and cracks or whatever. I usually don't get splits on my fingers or the creases. Sometimes I'll get that like crease thing where it overlaps and kind of splits a little bit.
Okay.
But I'll file my creases way down and keep them really thin. So if my skin's so dry, I'll just use a ton of repair at night just to give it that moisture and help it heal.
Okay.
Then as I get closer to the trip, depending on where I'm going, I'll just kind of back off on everything a little bit and let it get like a little sweaty. I'll just let it get to where I want that humidity to be.
Okay.
Not necessarily sweaty, but that's like kind of where you can fine tune.
Okay. Interesting. So you start overly dry and kind of let it come back a little bit.
Yeah, I just go like full stop.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so if you are in that period where you've done the full stop and now you're using performance 2-3 nights a week, and you're also using the repair every night, how are you combining those things? And would that be after a climbing day or on a rest day, or does it matter?
If you're using it consistently, it doesn't really matter because you're going to be even keeled on your skin humidity. If you're more of an on-off antiperspirant user, you're going to want to use it the night after rock climbing before a rest day because it usually takes that amount of time to like really meet its max effectiveness.
Okay.
The best practice is to not do these waves of sweat and dry. The best practice is just to be like, have the same dryness, skin humidity all the time.
Okay.
If you follow that, it doesn't matter when you use it as long as you're consistent in its use.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I think performance is kind of a 3 times a week type thing. If I'm really doing a lot of damage to my skin, some climbing trips you do, like, let's just burn this shit to the ground, and you just climb every day, and you're like, I'm going home eventually, so let's just do this.
Yeah.
That turns into like a performance every night kind of thing.
Okay.
Because, skin starts to weep, and you're like, I need something. And it's just like burning it to the ground. Just use as much performance cream as you can with repair on top of that. So it'll go like climb, wash, performance, repair.
Okay.
But that ends up in like heavy skin shedding if you don't. It's not good.
Okay.
It's not good.
A sustainable practice.
If you want to like rock climb for the rest, if you want to stop that trip and then still rock climb, that always ends up with like really glassy skin, and then it all comes off.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of like a burn it to the ground kind of thing. So yeah, like 2 or 3 days a week, I'll do repair basically right before I go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually like climb, wash, repair, dinner, wash, performance, repair.
Perfect. Okay. Interesting.
It took me like an hour to get there.
No, that's really interesting to hear how you think of that. That's really helpful. I think you've recommended to me in the past, as we've talked about skin stuff, that it's important every once in a while to give your skin a break, just not use any products, even repair. Is that correct?
Yeah, I definitely go with that. Yeah.
Okay, and how do you think about that? How often should we be doing that? And maybe I'm just kind of curious, like, what is it that's happening during that stage that's important?
It's going to be a increase in skin humidity, so faster healing. You get to kind of mentally check back in with where your body is. So for me, I'm like, shit, my hands haven't sweat in like a while. Are they okay? Like, are they going to go back to normal? And so I'm just super inquisitive about the product, and I want to make sure it's still working right and everything. So I'll do dumb stuff, and then I'll be like, what happens if I stop now? If you have like no sweat hands or just really beat up hands, and you can stop using the product, the antiperspirant products, it's a good idea just to let your hands sweat and kind of get back to zero. And an interesting thing is, if you are real conscious about the use of antiperspirant on your hands, a lot of people find that when they're rock climbing, they'll feel like their hands are sweating. If you're using the antiperspirant, you'll be rock climbing and your brain will go, hey, I think it's time to chalk up because my hands are sweating. And then you can look at your hands and go, nope, there's still a ton of chalk on them, and then keep rock climbing. I think it helps to like retrain your brain that it doesn't need to sweat so much. And so for me, sometimes if I've been practicing that, like conscious climbing or whatever you want to call it, I can like reduce or stop my antiperspirant use. And then I feel like the effects, like the mental effects, work a little longer.
Interesting.
Like I think my guess is through the practice of going, oh, my hands are sweating, looking at them, still being chalk on there, continuing to rock climb, having success, I'm kind of retraining myself that there doesn't have to be this stressor. Because I think once you have this stressor, you get more stressed, and then your hands start sweating more.
Interesting.
And so I've kind of retrained that to the point where it's like, no, my hands aren't sweating, and so then I actually need less of the product.
Wow.
In the long run.
Okay. So you're actually training your body to sweat less, you think?
Yeah, I think it's a really good tool for that.
Wow. Okay. That's really interesting.
So that's another reason you could stop using it.
Okay. How often would you recommend people do that?
It's terrible for sales.
Yeah. I mean, as far as just like recovering and healing your skin and letting that humidity come back up, I mean, is that something we should do once a month or like once a season? How do you think about that?
I think once a month is really applicable, and it would probably only be like 5 days you'd have to take to get your skin sweating again.
Okay.
Man, I know some people that just use performance every day.
All the time.
All the time. I don't know if they've taken a day off since they've got their hands on it.
Yeah. Any issues with that you've seen?
Not that I know of.
Okay, cool.
Like, I got one person in mind, and he's just crushing harder than ever.
Wow.
Doesn't seem to be having any issues.
Huh.
But, yeah, taking some time off is good. Like anything.
Do you ever take time off from the repair?
I take time off from repair all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, my hands are just generally wet, so I don't need it all the time. Andy, my wife, she uses it all the time. I don't know if a day goes by she doesn't use it.
Dry skin.
She has super dry skin.
Okay.
There's no real reason you would have to stop using repair.
Okay. Cool. That's helpful. I had a question about cuts and gobies and stuff, because my understanding for your repair is that it's really for regenerating skin before it gets to that cut stage. Like, you wouldn't want to put it on a cut. And you guys have the split stick, which is like a waxy occlusive, right, to hold moisture in a cut.
Yep.
Any other thoughts on ways to treat cuts and gobies? You know, I've heard, and something I've tried is like putting Neosporin or even antibiotic ointment on a cut and then wrapping it in a Band-Aid. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, it all works. Basically, the goal is to keep moisture in there, but not too much moisture.
Huh.
So Neosporin is antibacterial as well as the split, and they're both occlusive, so they both hold moisture in. The reason for the Band-Aid, also an occlusive, kind of breathable, but not that breathable, and it keeps bacteria and dirt from sticking to the Neosporin and the split. Best thing you could use, Tegaderm. In my opinion, it's Tegaderm. Yeah, it's a clear, occlusive, breathable bandage.
Okay.
You buy it in sheets. You can cut it into strips if you want, but you can put it over your wound and just keep it there for as long as you want.
Huh.
You know, if you put like a Band-Aid on, your skin turns white underneath. Too wet, you're doing more damage.
Interesting.
Than helping, and it's going to just prolong how long your skin takes to heal.
Good to know.
And it also gives room for bacteria to grow because it's so wet. And Tegaderm will prevent that. Just like it's sticky. The whole thing's sticky. It's breathable. You can put it over whatever wounds you want.
It'll stay on your fingertips?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Do you wrap it around the whole finger when you're...
Yeah, you could wrap it around the whole finger. Sometimes when it gets over...
I'm so excited to try this.
Oh, it's really good.
I've never even heard of this stuff.
Sometimes when it gets over my cuticles, it bugs them a little bit.
Okay.
I don't know what it is. Or sometimes where the bandage overlaps gets a little buggy too. Not insect buggy, just like bothersome. You can usually cut it into some shape to stick to your fingers or your skin or whatever.
Okay.
It's the best. It's like the number one best thing I could recommend to put on your skin to help it heal.
Cool.
Keep it clean. Like, wash it. Wash it super thoroughly, and then let it dry, and then Tegaderm.
Do you have to reapply every so often?
It'll fall off eventually, and you could reapply.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to peel it off and wash and...
No, it's good. You could shower, wash your hands, whatever.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll find it and link to it in the show notes.
Yep. There's generic brands too. Tegaderm's like a little bit pricey, but I mean, it's not like $100 a sheet or anything. It's like $15 for 3 sheets.
Okay.
But then there's generic brands from like Rite Aid and Walgreens. I think they're a little thicker, a little less breathable, but they do the job too. There's one other thing. I think it's called Hypafix or Hyfix. It's a really interesting product too. I haven't used it much, but it's pretty cool. It's like this felt fabric. It's like a polyester felt, and it's super sticky, and it kind of does the same thing, and it's way more durable than Tegaderm, but it doesn't work as well. So if you want to like keep it on while you're climbing, or if you have stuff to do, it might be the better option. It's super sticky.
What's the name of that one again?
I think it's called Hypafix
Okay,
or
I'll look it up.
Hyfix. It's red lettering. It's a white bandage. It has red lettering on like the sticky protective part. That's probably a really good way to go as well. The Tegaderm definitely works better for healing.
Okay. So right now I have like a hole in my entire fingertip. I tore a big chunk out of my finger at Smith the other day. What would you recommend as far as putting something on it that I would want to wrap in climbing tape to be able to continue climbing through? Would like Tegaderm and then climbing tape be a good way to go? Or?
Climbing tape's going to be a full occlusive.
Yeah.
So you're going to run into the problem of getting that white skin. So you want to be really careful with maybe take it off between climbs or whatever, but you don't want to do more damage to the skin by like constantly putting on and taking off an adhesive bandage.
Gotcha.
So maybe the Hypafix might be really good for that because it's super sticky, it's breathable, but then when you wrap that in tape, it should stay put.
Okay.
And so you're not pulling on the skin directly.
Gotcha.
I've never done it.
Okay.
It might work.
All right.
Yeah. I think the Tegaderm would pull straight off as soon as you take the tape off.
Gotcha. So with the other stuff, say the name one more time.
Hypafix?
Hypafix.
I think that's what it's called. So we have some inside. I could go get it.
Okay. It's okay. We'll fact check it. So with that, I'd be able to wrap it in climbing tape and then just remove the tape between climbs, but hopefully that would stay put.
I think that should stay put.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's slippery. It would be slippery climbing with it.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the Evolve and Power Company tape, it's like a silicone tape. It sticks to itself, but not to your skin. That stuff works really well. It's breathable.
I haven't seen this.
Flexible. I think Evolve calls it secret tape or I don't know, something.
Okay.
And Power Company sells it as well.
And it's a climbing tape that you put on your fingers?
Yep. Yeah, it's really cool. It sticks to itself really well. It's amazing how well it works. And it's breathable. It's pretty flexible. I don't think it gives as much protection to the area because it is flexible. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it stays on your finger fairly well. Maybe not quite as well as like some of those really good tapes.
Mm.
But for like splits, like creases and stuff, I think it's a really good option.
Cool. I'll link to that as well. Interesting. So you were talking about filing your skin, and that's something that I think most climbers are familiar with. We don't need to go into that too much, but that reminded me of something. I was in the climbing gym. This is probably back in November or something, maybe December, and I ran into you and Andy, and you had your whole skin kit, and Andy was using the file to file a layer of rubber off her climbing shoes.
Oh, yeah.
And I had never seen that before. And it makes total sense, but I was really curious and asked you about it. And it was really, really interesting. Tell me about that.
I don't think you need to do that. So I don't rely on my feet a whole bunch when I'm rock climbing. It's probably a weakness of mine. Andy... So for me, when I rock climb, I push into the holds. When she rock climbs, she like hooks them with her toes and pulls out. And she feels that keeps her into the wall. And so her feet blow more than my feet blow. And she thinks that...
You mean like the shoe rubber blows out more?
No, like foot pop.
Okay.
Like foot pops off the holds.
Okay.
So her theory is that the chalk and the dust from the gym is getting onto the rubber and making it more slippery, which is, yeah, that's a reasonable thing to think. You have like the sticky rubber that has dirt on it, so it's not conforming to the holds as much. So she takes our 80-100 file and just gets all that dirt off. I think it's a reasonable thing to do. I guess if you're looking for like that little extra bit of performance, it's probably the way to go.
Interesting.
Because climbing with dirty shoes is going to decrease performance. I'm not saying it doesn't work.
Sure.
Well,
that's
saying I don't do that.
That's interesting. So that makes sense to clean it. I wonder, is there like any difference between using the file and just like warm water and some soap to clean that stuff off? Or even spit shining?
Spit shining? I don't know. I think with the file, I mean, if you think about it, the file's like taking that top layer of rubber off, which is going to be oxidized and a little bit hard.
I remember you mentioning
and
that.
Getting into the softer rubber underneath. Soap, I don't know how soap interacts with the rubber on your shoes. I remember as a kid, way back in the day, this would have been 1990, somewhere between 90 and 97. I would take OXY Pads and clean my shoes with them.
Okay.
And it made them way stickier.
Really?
Way stickier.
Interesting.
Yeah. Like, you know when you get a climbing shoe and it's brand new and you can stick the toes together and they kind of like stick to each other for a second?
Yeah.
You could do it with old shoes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you tried that method with new shoes?
I don't have OXY Pads anymore.
Okay. We got to try this.
Yeah. Do they still make them?
I have no
imagine
idea.
They still make them.
Probably somewhere.
Yeah. So I don't know what's in there that makes this rubber stickier. But Friction Labs or Tension that just came up with the shoe cleaner, the shoe rubber cleaner?
Not sure.
So maybe
I'll look that up as well.
It's like, I don't know what's in there.
Okay.
But yeah, definitely having clean shoes helps.
Right.
I mean, I'm not going to refute it. Having clean shoes helps.
Sure. I totally, I don't think anyone would argue that. I'm always blown away when people get on rock climbs with dusty shoes.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
Come on.
Definitely.
But the oxidized rubber thing was what caught my interest because that kind of makes sense to me. I've always felt that my gym climbing shoes rubber becomes different over time and versus my outdoor climbing
seems
shoe.
a little slicker and harder.
It does. And I don't know if that's just chalk on the mats or what, but regardless of what's causing it, using a file to get rid of that glassier layer, it really makes sense.
Yeah, I wonder if the chalk on the pads has to do something, just like getting crushed in there all the time, and maybe the texture of the holds is more of like a buffer than it is like a sandpaper. Because if you go like rock climbing outside and you're smearing or
the rock's almost
in,
doing what you're talking about.
Yeah, you look at your shoes and they're like super rough and worn.
Yeah.
But not for climbing inside, it seems.
Right. Interesting. Okay. I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
People listening should try it. Let us know if it helps.
Yeah. If you're a chemist, does the magnesium carbonate vulcanize or something the rubber on a climbing shoe to make it harder?
Let us know. Cool. Well, I would love to switch gears and talk more about your company.
All right.
It's been really fun.
You're a great company, Steven.
Watch it grow.
Oh, not that
You're a
type
great
of
company too. I remember, and it wasn't that long ago, it's really funny, but I remember walking into the closet in your house, and that was Rhino Skin Solutions. There's just bottles everywhere. You had I think you had for a while one size boxes, and for bigger orders, you were duct taping small boxes together.
Occasionally we still do that.
But it's so fun to go see the shop and to, of course, I know your employees and to see how much things have changed and grown. And it seems like it's really happened organically. It's really inspiring to see your process because I'm the person that tends to overthink everything. Before I, launched this, for instance, I had read everything there was to read about, my recording process and all that stuff. And it really seems that you just decided to take a leap with this early product idea and grow it organically and improve things as you went along, which is really neat to see. As far as it's come now, I would love to know, is there anything you wish you'd known when you were first getting started with this?
I definitely did. We didn't just jump into it.
Okay.
We jumped into the concept. What we did, we just took two products that already existed, put them together, and we're like, what happens? And so that was very little thought. It was just a what if, let's try it kind of thing. That was able to happen like that because we had antihydral and Avita foot cream. And we just put them together. That part was very much just jump right into it. We never sold that. That'd be a little messed up. So before Rhino actually started, it was a lot of research. We didn't just we didn't jump into it necessarily.
And your wife, Andy, is a pharmacist.
She's a pharmacist.
In case people didn't know.
So I would come up with the idea and the hypothesis of would this work or what does this do? Could we put this in there? And she would help me with the chemical nature of things and what certain ingredients do, what type of emulsifiers go into lotions. There's a lot of ingredients in lotions that I was what does this do? And she's it's like an emulsifier or it's an antibacterial thing. And I was well, that's out. So we kind of just through research and trial and error, we figured out what worked. And that took a while. Yeah, the garbage can was definitely full of lotion of various consistencies for a while. I'm glad it looks like we just jumped right into it. The fact of the matter is we did not.
Okay. Just curious to know
Oh, if
maybe on the business side,
yeah,
like what?
if there's anything I wish I knew.
Yeah, or advice that you'd have for yourself if you could go back and talk to yourself when you were first getting this going.
No, I think I've been having a great time with it.
Cool.
I was still working as a chef while the whole thing started for like the first 3 years. Yeah, so it was like a lot of hard work, a lot of hustle, a lot of long days, but I've really enjoyed every single bit of it. I'm glad I didn't go to like business school or any type of formal education, because I think that would have decreased the exploratory nature of it for me, and that's been like really fun. Like having a problem, finding a solution, seeing that solution work or not work, and then moving on. Like that's making lotion and selling it to people isn't like the most fun thing in the world, but the problem solving and the team building part is the best part. If I knew more, it would seem more of like a hustle or more of a...
Feel more like work?
It would feel more like work.
Huh.
Yeah. It would feel more like a coloring book, I guess. Like you're not really creating anything. You're just coloring in the lines, hoping that it comes out right. Where this is like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm having fun doing it. So as long as another order comes in tomorrow, it's fun.
Cool. It's interesting to see how your trajectory has been. Like you seem to grow in a lot of different directions kind of at once. Like you're expanding into new markets, you're creating new products, you're connecting with new athletes, you're doing new marketing ideas. Do you sit down and plan that stuff out? Do you just kind of come up with ideas and just go for it and execute? It seems like that's
B. Yeah. There's been so many times where I'll post something on Instagram or create a marketing thing and be like, well, that's going to happen next year too. So I should probably like make a marketing plan for the year that we could execute. But then I sit down and then I start thinking about this, like the whole year of things to do. And it's like, well, what's it going to look like next year? Or how am I supposed to institute a thing for next year? And then like, well, if I do that, I'm going to want to talk to all these people and get them involved. And then it just kind of expands into this giant idea / machine. And I don't want that. One of the major tenets of Rhino is not having a bunch of cogs moving, and not having like a giant machine. Like it should be very simple. Like the business should be simple. It should basically be letting people know it's there, people buying it, me shipping it, or somebody shipping it. That's like the core of the business, right? So everything on top of that is kind of extra. And we do a lot of like giveaways and product sponsorships for community events and just like donations to different nonprofits or whatever. So that's like a really enjoyable part of the business, just helping build community. And it's fairly easy. I don't have like a big process for that. People email me and I go, yeah, great. Here you go.
Do you have a budget allocated for that, or do you just...
It's kind of like a cash flow thing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more of just, do we have the cash flow and inventory to send stuff out?
Okay.
So yeah, just like keeping it as simple of a business model as possible. And so planning doesn't really fall into the simplicity. Some people might go, hey, dummy, if you plan, everything's a lot easier. But for me, that's not how it works.
Okay.
And I'm the dictator, so that's how it goes.
Perfect. Well, it's interesting. The question that brings to mind, speaking about needing to grow this thing or wanting to grow this thing to get to a point where you can make even better product. You grow to a certain extent and then it's no longer simple. You kind of have to turn it into more of a machine just to operate the thing, right? So is there it sounds like you don't want to maintain this growth trajectory forever. Is there a point at which you'd be really content and want to just maintain, or are you excited to see how big this thing can get?
Growing's pretty fun. Oddly enough, growing isn't more profitable yet. Like
Interesting.
like the more you grow, the more infrastructure you need and the more investment in the business you need. It was way more profitable when it was just me in my house.
Wow. Interesting.
But for like the long-term view and the long-term, there is no long-term plan, but for like a well-being of me and the people who work for me and the business itself, growth is definitely a good thing. Mm-hmm. And growth doesn't necessarily mean more complicated because it's all like systems based, you know, like we might have a more complicated tool, but it might be a lot simpler. Like we recently switched to shrink sleeves. It's way more complicated to get the art designed for the shrink sleeves and get the shrink sleeves made and then have the shrink sleeves shipped to us. And now we have this steam tunnel with a conveyor belt that we put the product through that shrinks the sleeves. And
this is for the labels?
Yeah, for the labels.
Okay.
And the first machine we got didn't have steam and that didn't work as well. And so we had to spray glue onto all the bottles to get the labels to stick. And I was like, well, that sucks. This isn't as good. But yeah, now that we have the shrink sleeve machine, we don't need somebody to sit and watch Netflix. I wasn't mad at it, but it's just something that doesn't need to happen now. Sit and watch Netflix for like 10 hours a week, putting pressure sensitive labels on bottles.
Gotcha.
Now we can do like a bunch of bottles in minutes instead of hours. So like it's kind of more complicated, but not more complicated. It's definitely more streamlined. It's like way more streamlined than manually applying stickers. Mm-hmm. So yeah, growth isn't necessarily more complicated.
And it seems like all your processes, I mean, you haven't necessarily planned the systems and planned the growth or the way it's going to look, but it seems like you're really good at, maybe it's that you enjoy the problem solving. It seems like you've been really good at putting systems in place as needed.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's the fun part. That's
cool.
Like the really interesting thing is the problem solving. I don't want to have a business where I have cogs. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is probably basic business shit, but people shouldn't be cogs. Whether I ran a restaurant or have people working for Rhino, like I'm always open to their suggestions. Like they're just as important as I am.
Has that had a pretty significant impact on the business, having employees and hearing their input?
Oh yeah,
cool.
Definitely. I suck at organizing.
Okay.
I'm horrible at it. Like for me, so I have a saying, everything has its place and sometimes it's on the floor. And so, yeah, having people that are more organized than I am or, you know, can view a situation and be like, hey, can we do it this way? Yeah, I welcome that. If an employee feels worried about giving me feedback or scared about it, I'm doing something wrong. For sure. Like we got the shrink sleeve machine and getting that thing to work was one of the coolest days of my life because it was like the first real machine that the business has. I mean, computers are far more complicated than it, but we take them for granted so they don't count. So we got this like stainless steel shrink sleeve machine. It's got these like settings of how much steam comes out, how fast the conveyor belt goes, where the steam comes out inside the machine, and you kind of just have to mess with it. But we got that all set up, and then so the bottles come out and then they drop into a bucket, and they kind of drop in there really, really hard. I was like, that cannot be good for the labels. It can't be good for the bottles. Is there something we can do to like soften the blow into the bucket? So it's just your standard like 10-gallon plastic bin that every climber has full of climbing gear in their car.
Okay. Like a tote.
Yeah. So I was like, can we put a net there, a ramp or something? And so what we finally figured out is if you put, we have like a, 1 foot long 2x4.
Okay.
And we put a screw through the two screws through the 2x4 into the side of the bucket.
Okay.
Or into the side of the bin. And so when the bottle comes out of the machine, it hits the 2x4 and the plastic is firm enough that the 2x4 just doesn't drop, but the bottle hits the plank and then the plank like lowers and drops it into the bucket.
Okay.
So you just have like hundreds of bottles. You go, dunk. That was a pretty fun
little
thing
like
to make.
slow trap door kind of thing.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. But
That's
that was
cool.
that was like, that took a couple brains to make that happen.
Nice.
Like all these different ideas coming in.
Cool. That's fun. So you were talking about how when you first started this thing, you were still working as a chef for a few years and you were hustling pretty hard to make it happen. Now you do this full time.
Mm-hmm.
How's the work-life balance for you now? Was that an important part of the equation when you first had this idea, and how has that played out now?
When I first started, it wasn't really part of the equation just because I was so excited about the idea and like just dove all in on it. Yeah, so it wasn't anything that was on the radar. As it grew, I definitely felt myself losing out on a lot of what I wanted to do. Climbing definitely suffered. But there was a point where I was like really excited about the business and the success in Rhino. And so climbing was kind of less important. I had gotten to a point in my climbing career where like I wasn't succeeding as much there. And so having success in a business was kind of more cool to me. So I was fine with it. But then it kept on growing and I really felt like I lost all freedom. I was just so busy with Rhino and just accomplishing everything that needed to happen, whether it was shipping or labeling or making the product or communicating with emails and whatever. Yeah, so work-life balance definitely was really skewed. Didn't have much of a life. Still like tried to do stuff, but there was no time to spend as much time on the rock or on skis as I wanted. So I just wasn't like finding much success in either one. And that got more frustrating. But then I moved into my shop, hired an employee, and that was like really nerve wracking. Moving into a place, it was like, oh, in my mind, not having any business experience, I was like, oh, great. Rent. I can afford that. No big deal. And then, signed the lease and I was like, oh, now I need internet and pay for heat and electricity. And well, we're a lot bigger. So I need an employee. Yeah, that was definitely a huge change in the trajectory of my work-life balance. Having somebody that I could trust and rely on be in the shop without me and be autonomous gave me a ton of time back, and it's been awesome. Yeah.
Cool. When was that transition?
So I think I've been in the shop about a year now.
Okay.
And so it wasn't that long after moving into the shop that I hired Miranda, and I went from working, I don't know, a lot of hours a week. I don't know if it was 80 hours a week. I don't know if it was 700. I don't know if it was 40 or not. But I worked a lot. Yeah, no time to do much of anything. And for me, like, I need to feel comfortable and successful in my work in order to be successful in my play. Like if work is bothering me, I won't have the mental energy to put into my recreation activity. It's just too, I'm like, oh shit, I should be at work, like figuring this problem out. And so like climbing for me is kind of like sport climbing, especially at Smith, is kind of stressful. And so I need to have work be calm for me to climb well at Smith. And so, yeah, having somebody that I could trust at the shop definitely changed a lot over for me. I was able to spend more time climbing, spend more time skiing. And then, yeah, I got hurt climbing, and then I started kickboxing and grappling, and that's been fun too.
Let's talk about that. So yeah, it's been interesting. The last handful of times I've seen you at the climbing gym, you've seemed way more excited about kickboxing than you have about rock climbing.
Yep.
How did you get into mixed martial arts?
Well, it turns out getting punched in the face is more fun than climbing at Smith Rock, first of all. So if you're thinking about coming to Smith, just think about that.
Just getting a street fight.
Yeah, don't get in a street fight.
Save the plane ticket.
Get in a gym where it's highly controlled. Street fight, probably less fun than climbing at Smith Rock.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was climbing at the gym, and there are a certain set of holds that seem to injure me every time I grab them. It's these black in-cut low radius crimpers, but I love them.
Okay.
So delete that out. And then there's these pink big open hand slopers. And when I grab these big slopers, my wrist tends to elongate a little bit. And I think it's that like triangle tendon thing on the outside of your wrist, like pinky side. And I think one time it popped. Like it elongates on me fairly regularly.
Like a strain, like you feel sore the next day sort of thing? Or?
Yeah, strain, like I'm holding it and then I can see like my wrist kind of separate a little bit.
Oh, wow.
Usually it just goes right back to normal and I'm fine.
Okay.
But this time it popped and I couldn't rock climb at all. I couldn't like crimp. I couldn't slope her.
When was this? This is a year ago? Or...
Yeah, maybe a little over a year ago now.
Okay.
I guess I've been at the shop a year and 2 months at this point. So probably around then.
Okay.
Yeah, I got my life back and then I hurt myself. Yeah, so right down, so my shop, 3 doors down was a MMA gym and they do a lot of fitness stuff in there. And I walked in there and I was like, hey, I'll try this out. And I got hooked. Yeah. So it was like I started an hour a day of like kickboxing and then an hour of grappling. And that coach, Jimmy Smith for you on Instagram, he does personal training. Give him a shout out. He's trained quite a few fighters, had some good success at it, does a lot of self-defense stuff. His theory is you have to be fit. Like fitness will overcome a lot. Like if you don't have the fitness, you're not going to be able to use the techniques. You're just not going to be able to execute. So we do like half an hour of calisthenic type fitness. I don't know if calisthenics is the right word, but body weight training. Okay. And then like half an hour of like bag work and then some sparring in there. Depends on what day. And then grappling. So kickboxing is like all punching or all pushing stuff. And then grappling is like all pulling. So I'd go back to back. So many new muscle groups. Like I don't care how hard you think you're training for rock climbing. It's nothing. It's like literally nothing. If you're looking at your phone at all in an hour session, you're not working as hard as like martial artists or people who are like fighters. Really going, fighters.
Interesting.
Going to his gym got me in the best shape I've been in my entire life. I'm 40, so I don't know if that's relevant or not, but
you told me a great story about having to go to the doctor for something.
Oh yeah, else. I had so I have Crohn's and I have like a small bowel constriction and it got blocked and I went into the hospital because I was like, I'm not doing good. I didn't know if it was like if I was having a flare up or what it was, but you go to the hospital, they hook you up to a heart monitor. And my resting heart rate was 46 and they're like, they just thought the machine was broken. They're like, is that real? Like, is it 46? They like checked the finger measure thing. And I was like, yeah, I've been working hard. And that was a surprise to me because I think right now during this quarantine, I think my resting heart rate's at like 58 now. Mm-hmm. And that's like sleeping. I wore a heart rate monitor while I was sleeping once.
Gotcha.
Which I don't like to do. I woke up in a panic, like, get this thing off my wrist. My hand was numb. But yeah, so that was pretty amazing. And I'm not a runner and I could go run like 6 or 8 miles and be fine. And yeah, it was pretty cool. I've been enjoying every bit of it for sure. And just having like a different perspective and stupid stuff from getting out of my car at a sketchy grocery store and people fighting in the parking lot. Not like physically fighting, but yelling at each other, There's like that little stressor and you're like, I got to get out of here. And just feeling more comfortable in that situation. Or like I said, do not want to ever fight anybody for real.
Yeah.
But knowing I could run far and that like I was physically more fit and had some tools is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you've talked about kickboxing and jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. Is that the main things that you've been playing with?
Yeah. I've kind of stopped kickboxing as much. Just scheduling, it didn't work out as well for me. Mm-hmm. I started it all in the summer and we were doing me and my wife were having like really fun long days. We had rock climb in the morning and then run and then I'd go to kickboxing and grappling or we go to the river, we go like climbing in the river with the dog and then I go there. And then like climbing season came back around. So I kind of took a hiatus from the gym I was going to. to go on like a climbing trip and get some rock climbing done. And like core wise and body movement wise, I felt great. My fingers were pretty weak, but I didn't like get physically tired on the rock. Like I felt like I could keep body position for however long and really push through stuff. It was like my fingers. It wasn't that I couldn't pull or couldn't push or couldn't compress. It was like my fingers just didn't work as well because I hadn't been putting the time in. So went climbing, had some great success with climbing trips. Went to Waco Tanks and climbed this pretty classic V9, and it didn't feel that difficult. And it was like a fairly quick couple-hour session.
This is after just a lot of MMA.
Yeah.
And not a lot of rock climbing.
Yeah.
Okay. When was this?
I definitely ramped up rock climbing a little bit before the trip because like I had goals at Waco. And so then I came back from Waco Tanks, and the gym that I was training at stopped the grappling program. And I was like, shit, I really like grappling. And so I started at this jiu-jitsu gym. And their classes are like 2 hours long. And so that doesn't really leave me a lot of extra time to continue kickboxing. I do miss it though. I have a double end bag in the home, which is super fun.
Nice.
Yeah, it's awesome. I approach it very much similar to like climbing routes. It's there's like sequences and moves and techniques that you have to learn and link together, and even more so like the incremental improvement that happens from jiu-jitsu is really interesting.
Yeah, where are you at on the belt system?
Oh, I'm as low as it gets. I've got 2 stripes on my white belt.
Okay.
So I've got a long way to go.
Can you convert that to Yosemite grades?
Yes. I'd probably say I am a 5'10" sport climber, 5'9" trad climber. Because sport climbing, it's more just like pure physical skill.
Okay.
You know, you just kind of go for it and fling yourself up there. And so it's kind of like a more of a measure of physical proficiency, where like trad climbing is more of a measure of technical proficiency.
Okay.
But also you need to be physically proficient.
Okay.
Maybe endurance goes a little longer way in trad climbing, where technical proficiency with like the systems isn't really mandated in sport climbing. So my technical proficiency is pretty low in jiu-jitsu.
Gotcha.
But I'm not like a physical specimen by any means, but I'm like a physically fit human being, so I can do okay. I feel like I'm past Gumby beginner stage.
Gotcha.
And I feel like most people, given adequate sense of body awareness and physical fitness, can climb 5'10".
Okay. Physically, you're a 5'10" jiu-jitsu player? What is the...
Sure. I have no idea. I don't know. You can call it whatever you want.
5'9" as far as your technical proficiency with jiu-jitsu. Okay. So now that you're back to climbing again, where does jiu-jitsu... How do those two things fit together? Do you have goals with jiu-jitsu? Are you going to keep after it?
Yeah. I'm going to keep going.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the gym's closed right now. So I'm eagerly awaiting the reopening and just the right things to happen in the greater world to let that happen, because I really like the physical aspect of it and the workout and the people. The people are great too. It's a whole different group of people, and they're all awesome. For rock climbing, we're going on a climbing trip, hopefully the first 2 weeks of July, and I'm pretty excited for it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I don't know. It's not like a place that I'm going to need to rock climb, be at like peak physical fitness for. I think it's a great place where I can do a bunch of rock climbs and have a ton of fun and kind of start ramping up things, get the big muscle groups going, and just have some good old fashioned fun rock climbing.
Cool.
Yep.
And your wrist is fully healthy at this point?
Nope. No, it's not.
Dang.
I've been trying to do some hangboarding.
You guys have a tread wall in your
pull-ups
garage.
and tread wall, yeah, and it still hurts.
Dang.
Yeah, I don't think it'll ever be like top notch.
No
again.
kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It seems like every time I ramp up training, that wrist issue just keeps coming back. Yeah. So I don't know if Maybe I should just tape it every time, which is probably a good idea. But
Have you diagnosed this specific issue?
I've never had like an MRI or anything.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure, I just can't remember the name. It's like TFC or something. Ligament.
Gotcha. Dang.
There's probably some physical therapist going, it's not TFC.
Well, I might be able to connect you with somebody. Have you been working with anybody, or have you tried different protocols or physical therapy or anything?
Suck at all that.
Okay. Are you just accepting it?
No, I'm not accepting it. I'm trying to work through it.
Okay.
But the reason I rock climb is because rock climbing is fun and training is not that fun. So I have a really hard time training and doing all that stuff. And I think that's one of the reasons, like going to Jimmy's gym or Clark's is really good for me, because it's really fun and it's a really good workout. If I'm left up to my own devices, it's sitting on the couch, drinking beer, watching TV.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm not going to hangboard or lift weights or anything. I will a little bit. I'm kind of like let's talk about this for a little bit. So I have this theory, and there's a lot, I think so I didn't come up with this theory, but like greatness and insanity are very close together.
Sure.
Are like neighbors.
Alan Watts talks about this a lot.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
Okay. And
He thinks we're all crazy a little bit.
yeah, so I think people have different limiters on crazy. Like for me, I'll wake up and be like, I'm going to do like 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 pull-ups. I'm going to go do squats. But then I like sit down at the computer, answer a couple emails, drink some coffee. And I'm like, that doesn't sound like that much fun. Where like people who are top of the food chain, they're like, I'm going to do this. And then they just do it. They don't have a limiter. That like if somebody's around, like if somebody's in the house, we have a visitor or whatever, I'm not going to go in the back room and get like an hour screaming workout done. Because to me, I'm like, oh, that seems like a little weird and a little, I don't want to be like a little self-conscious, I guess. I don't want to be in the back room like, just screaming and sweating and cranking music. So that's like my limiter. That's one of my limiters. The other limiter is like, it seems like a lot of work. That's not like fun. Like to me, hanging out with somebody, chatting or whatever is going to be more fun. So I'm not going to do that. Like, do you think you have a limiter, or do you feel that you can get straight down to, because you've had some good success training and then going out and accomplishing routes like pretty quick?
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea. I think the idea of it totally resonates, like when you see athletes who are abnormal in their results, they don't have normal lifestyles most of the time, and like you have to decide whether or not you're willing to accept abnormality. And for some people that's fun and it doesn't feel like sacrifice, right? They just like want to do whatever it takes. And I like am probably further on one side of that spectrum than most people, but what's interesting to me is how it shifts over time. Like I'm in a much different place with that right now than I was 2 years ago, where I would be, there was like several summers in a row where I would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to hangboard with good conditions before my work. I would do that all summer, and it worked. It like helped me get better at climbing. But I think something I've realized too is that like combining some of that with more consistent rock climbing and more consistent like playfulness and fun is maybe yielding even better results. And so I've let go of some of that a bit, but it also, I don't think I was happiest when I was doing that. There's some satisfaction in sacrificing and like really feeling like you're giving something your all. And I really feel like I connect more with that than probably most people do. But, you're still waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go in your garage and hangboard. Like it's not as fun as going out and
Why do you think hangboarding in good conditions is more effective than hangboarding in bad conditions? It seems like bad conditions would be better because you have to hold on harder.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think for me, it was about eliminating an extra factor, slipping off the hangboard.
Being scientific.
Yeah, being able to like reliably know what your loading should be because, so
sense.
taking that out of the equation as much as possible. I have two thoughts with hearing you talk about this, though. It's really interesting. So with the jiu-jitsu, is it that it's so much fun that it makes it easier for you to get to that place where you're like working harder and suffering more without it feeling like that's what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
climbing training's a little bit more.
Yeah, for
chore.
climbing, I mean, as a kid, rock climbing, I had goals, and I far exceeded the goals living in Bend and close to a climbing area. And so I think I just got to a point where, like, to reach another goal, I don't even know if I have had any goals, like performance goals left. There's a couple goals that I have in rock climbing still, but they're not necessarily like based on what for me would be like performance rock climbing. So it just kind of became a little stationary. And to achieve the goals would be, I'm getting down into that like super small incremental growth that takes a ton of effort, where jiu-jitsu and kickboxing, now it's just jiu-jitsu, I guess, is I suck so bad that like every time I think I get quite a bit better. Just learn so much, like doors are opening up, whole new rooms. And so it's like interesting for me. It's not just hitting my head against a hangboard or a campus rung anymore. It's like this whole new pathway, this whole new thing, which I get gratification from because I'm improving. Yeah, it's like, I don't know, maybe I'm just weak and need the instant gratification of like something new, where I can't.
I don't think that's a bad thing. If that's what it takes to,
Yeah.
you know, like, well, I guess the reason I say that is because, I don't know, because people know that I do a lot of training, I get this comment all the time, which is like, wow, you're so disciplined. And it's like, no, not really. Like, I don't hate hangboarding, you know? I'm not forcing myself to hangboarding. I kind of like it. I suspect that it's way more fun for me than 90+% of people.
I think it's the worst.
Right. So, like, it probably doesn't make sense for you to approach your improvement at climbing the same way. You know, like, I'm doing what I actually kind of want to do. It's not like forcing myself to do this thing. So the other thought that I had when you're talking about the connection between greatness and crazy that I think is so interesting is you've climbed 514. So you climbed Badman at Smith Rock, what, 4 years ago, something like that?
No, it was like 7 or 8
Was it really?
now. Yeah.
Okay, 8 years ago, 2013 maybe?
Yeah, somewhere in there.
And, but what's interesting is like...
I had a super fun, very low stress job.
Okay. That's a key. That's interesting. But, you know, it sounds like you're not as willing or excited to go suffer on the hangboard and train in a systematic way for climbing. But your approach to climbing Badman, at least what I observed from the outside, seemed like a very monotonous, like a lot of drudgery. I'm like, I don't want to go do that.
It was a lot.
You tried it for like 8 months straight, you know, like multiple times a week. And like, to me, that sounds more heinous than, you know, going in my garage and like watching a climbing movie while I hangboard. Yeah. Tell me about that. Like, I mean, it sounds like that got you just spoke to, you know, exceeding the goals that you had. And I assume that's what you were talking about, you know, climbing Badman and climbing most of the 513s at Smith. I remember after that whole process, it seemed like it kind of, you were glad to have done it. You were proud of the accomplishment, but maybe it burned you out.
Yeah. I think there was a certain point in climbing at Smith where I realized accomplishing one climb gives you the tools to accomplish the next one. Perfect example is Oxygen. It's got crazy body tension and super tiny feet. At the point where I climbed that, they were the littlest.
It's a 13B.
13B, yep. They were the littlest feet I've ever climbed on, and that transferred to a couple of the cruxes on Lucky Pigeon 13C, where you have like slightly better holds, but the feet are just crazy tiny for a while.
That's a good comparison.
So I got like really into that view of like, all right, what did I learn from this rock climb? How is it going to help me on this rock climb? And I got to apply it immediately and see the benefits of the leading up. And then I get to a problem. I think the first, like I said before, my footwork is horrible. And I quickly realized that for me, at Smith, I mean, this isn't completely factual, but I like to say it because it's kind of funny, is every route below 13B felt like 13B before because my feet were terrible. And 13Bs at Smith just have shitty enough feet that you have to use your arms more to get up them. And so I climbed 13B. I was like, oh, that's like how everything else feels. And so the first route that took me a while to get there was Mama Dacus. And it's like pretty fun, cool climbing the whole way. But it has like a stopper crux. That's a dynamic, like one-hand stab. It's basically like a one-hand campus move. Your feet are on, though. And that one was the first time I really like translated rock climbing to training. And I would just go into the gym. I'd put my feet on 2 small footholds, and I'd take my right hand and I'd go like 1-4 or whatever the distance was. I'd just go 1 up to 4, back to 1 up
On
to
the
4.
campus rungs.
Yeah, because it was like pure campus strength.
Totally.
And the route I trained for is super similar. Was Agro Monkey right next door. Getting into the pocket, I just sit in my car like pretending my hand was going into the pocket while I was driving. Like just do this motion.
So real quick, Agro Monkey is like kind of the 13B on that wall. It's
the 13B.
Yeah, one of the probably the funnest one at Smith. And then Mama Dacus is a 13C right next door. That's just slightly, it's like a harder version of the same climb.
Branches off after the first crux. Yeah, so that's where I started realizing that I had to train for stuff. And it had been like a pretty epic year of rock climbing for me with like a lot of success. Great job. Had plenty of time to go rock climbing with like Andrew and Sierra in the wee morning, like 5:30 a.m., going out with Andy, my wife, on the weekends at 5:30 a.m. It was awesome. Going out, it's just pigeons and hawks and peregrines and us. And it was beautiful. It was like the whole package, like rock climbing success, great friends, beautiful nature, and nobody else around. It's like an amazing spot. So yeah, then I get to Badman, and I think part of me was just like, I think I could see this thing going. For a while, it was like, I can't even do most of these moves. And then you start like making all these links, just like a project, And one day I was like, oh, I could do this thing. And that's when insanity ensued. I guess. I don't remember the point exactly where that became my whole entire life. But I remember telling my boss at the time, I was like, I may show up late, and it's because I'm really close to my rock climbing project. I know you don't understand what that is, but I need to do it, and that's the most important thing. And he was like, okay, as long as you're here like for service. Yeah, so it was a long road of one hangs. And
how many more months from that point till sending?
It was a lot. The way I remember it is I had gotten on it before because a few friends were trying it, and I top roped it, and then I just spray all the beta, which is so helpful. But I never was like into it. But then finally I built up enough where I was like, well, that's the one. There's a handful of 514s you can choose from at Smith, and that's the one that I found to be the most fun. To me, it's the least fucked up.
It's the least not fun.
Yeah, it's the least not fun. And I was having, it's awesome rock climbing.
Yeah, it is cool.
The whole way. Really fun moves, straight to the chains. And yeah, the way I remember it is I basically gave it 3 goes a day, 3 days a week for a year.
Wow.
Yeah. Is that better than hangboarding and then accomplishing it in 3 weeks? Fuck yeah. Because I got to see peregrines attack pigeons, and I got to see otters in the river, and I got to hang out and talk shit with my buddies.
Cool.
But
I don't think everyone would answer that question that way.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really interesting.
But yeah, when I sent it, part of me was like, yay. And part of me was like, this is going to be great. I'm going to go climb a bunch of other hard routes. But the reality was the fact of doing 3 goes a day, 3 times a week for a year, my shoulders were they were fucked. just like impingement like crazy.
Oh, wow.
They could do the moves on the route, but when it came to like translating it other places, they didn't really want to work much anymore.
I didn't know this.
And I was really good. I was like, I'm so strong. I'm going to be able to climb hard other places. And the reality of it was I got really good at doing those moves.
Interesting.
And so that was a shocker, but I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then it was a little bit of a battle to make my shoulders work, and just coming back to rock climbing after like trying to heal my shoulders and taking a break. I'd be like, all right, I feel great. And then they hurt again. Then it just, I don't know, seemed like just a streak of injuries from there. But I don't know. Here I am.
Here you
getting
are.
punched in the face and choked out on a daily basis.
You said at one point, I was asking you the other day when we were hanging out about kickboxing versus jiu-jitsu, and you said one thing you really like about jiu-jitsu is that you describe jiu-jitsu as being real technique-y, and that translates to climbing a lot.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. I think one of the things in jiu-jitsu that translates the most is the body tension. Yeah, just the core and the body tension, and able to like hold a position translated to bouldering.
Teaching your body to work together as like one thing.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and just like pull, like compression.
Okay.
That has never really been a strong point for me. I'm basically like put my feet on the holds you're supposed to use, square up, generate all my momentum from like my shoulders and lats, and then just latch the next hold kind of rock climber. I'm not much of like a drop knee or stemmer or
Squeezer.
Technique kind of person. I'm just like
we need to combine forces.
I'm more of just like a square up and get there kind of person. Works well for me. That doesn't work in jiu-jitsu. There's no squaring up. Where I am right now in my jiu-jitsu life, I can't use my climbing strengths. I mean, I have a certain amount of strength from rock climbing that helps for sure. And I've learned a certain amount of body awareness from having to stand on small holds and hold certain positions, and like, how do I get from point A to point B? But jiu-jitsu has trained just different muscle combinations and body positions that I didn't use from patterning rock climbs forever. So I immediately saw the benefit in that. And I was really excited to go to Waco Tanks after kickboxing and jiu-jitsu for 8 months, because I felt stronger. I felt better put together. I felt more aware of myself. And it for sure did play out. I still suck at knee bars. I don't get them at all. But it definitely, having this other cross-training sport was like pretty cool. I think I lied to myself a little bit, because I was like, this is really going to help. I'm going to be able to climb like steep V10s, no problem. My core is amazing. But it still comes down to like actually rock climbing and having good finger strength, which I didn't really have much of until the end of the trip. But yeah, with jiu-jitsu, it's, you go to class, and I'm sure every gym's different. You do the warm-ups, and then you spend half hour, 45 minutes, maybe an hour, I don't know, on like a certain sequence to accomplish a goal, whether it's like takedowns to submission, or like how to get out of somebody else being dominant. It's still chaos to me, but it's not supposed to be chaos. There's like actual proven methods that work in certain situations, and they're trying to teach them to you. And so being able to incorporate those patterns into my brain and my body is very much like rock climbing. Yeah.
Interesting. Do you think that could inform like how you approach a bouldering session or a boulder project or something like that? Have you taken anything from jiu-jitsu and integrated it back into climbing as far as?
No, I think I've been climbing for so long that it's more of a climbing to jiu-jitsu thing.
Got it.
Than jiu-jitsu to climbing.
Okay.
I definitely incorporate some strength from jiu-jitsu into rock climbing, but the way I approach jiu-jitsu is because of rock climbing.
Learning the techniques and breaking down sequences.
Yeah, I get the concept of like, I know there's pieces to this. I know that I can't do them now, or don't understand them, but I know if I break it down into a certain amount of parts, I'll be able to put them together eventually. And so it's just like working on, like this was the perfect example, and people are into this right now, so this is great. Working on foot matches. So like in rock climbing, you're on 2 holds, one foot's on a hold, but your other foot needs to be on it. And so there's a certain like body tension and weightlessness that has to happen where you get to put your other foot on there. And that is so ingrained to me because you're constantly doing it at Smith, and the feet are so small that I was grappling with one of the coaches, and he was trying to tangle up. I didn't even realize this is what he's doing, but like you're like fairly close to the other person the whole time, so you can kind of read them. You can like read if they're relaxed or like you do something that they feel in danger or interesting or whatever. And he tried to tangle up my feet with his feet, and it must have just triggered some sort of rock climbing idea in my head. I didn't even think about it, but I like so I think he was like probably had both of my wrists or maybe an elbow and a wrist, and I was standing up and he was on his back, and he tangled up my foot, and I took my free foot, unweighted myself, stepped on his foot and freed my other foot, and then just went back to the normal stance I was in. And his eyes got so wide, and he's like, "What did you just do?"
Wow.
And I was like, "Foot match." He's like, interesting. And so we do like 5 or 6 minute rounds. And so for me, I'm always reacting to what the stimulus to me is, because I don't know what I'm doing. I can't plan. It's just random coming at me. And so I try and like use the skills I have to react. But he's good enough that he knows if he does something, something else is going to happen. And so for the next 5 minutes, he would like set me up to do that and then see my reaction. And every time it was the same thing, foot match.
Wow.
And he was like, interesting. So, yeah. So rock climbing helps me with that.
Cool.
Yeah. That was neat. Having somebody who's been doing it since they were a youth, and he's still a kid. He's like 23 or something. I don't even know if he's 23. I don't know how old he is.
But he hadn't really seen that before.
Yeah. Shout out to Badman. No, I guess not. No, I think he was like, because it was like such a simple thing, you know, just like
switched on
just
me.
like just unweight, step on their foot,
right,
get free. But
do you have any aspirations to climb 514 again? I know you're trying to bolt at one point.
Yeah, that thing's like 519 at least. I think it would be cool to climb 514 again. I don't think it's going to happen at Smith.
Okay.
I could see it happening at the New or the Red or something.
Is that just mostly a motivation thing?
It's mostly like a body mechanics impact thing.
Okay.
I just think it takes a lot of wear and tear to climb 514 at Smith, and the holds are bigger, and the rock's a little nicer, and
At
just
the
a little bit
Red,
more gentle at the Red and the New.
Gotcha.
Like that would be a situation where I could see myself getting psyched to train for a specific route. Like I've been on Transworld.
Transworld depravity.
Yeah, I got on it by accident.
That's probably a story.
But I could see doing it. Like it's not.
Yeah.
It's nothing crazy. It's
I think
not like
you've on-sighted some 13As there. Right?
I've at least flashed a 13A there. I think.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm very much like a rock climb and let it go kind of person.
I can tell.
I don't have a journal.
I'm so different from that.
Yeah. It's amazing. There's so many people that have crazy journals, and sometimes I'm jealous. I'm like, oh man, they'd be so nice. But when it comes to brass tacks, I'm like, forget it. I'm just like, move on.
On to the next.
That's fun.
Yeah.
It's like endurance, some short boulder problems. It's not tweaky, and you could I could see something like that happening. Climbing hardest boulder seems a little bit more reasonable. I go to Waco Tanks a bunch.
Do you have any goals for bouldering?
I'd like to. There's a couple of V10s at Waco I'd like to do. Those are kind of the goals. There's an 11 there I'd like to do, but it's not so much. There's not like hardest rock climb goals anymore. It's more like rock climbs that I'd like to do.
Specific routes.
Yeah,
or boulders.
like When Legends Diet Waco Tanks is like it's supposed to be one of the best 13s in the world. I'd like to do that. The hardest rock climb in 1979, the year I was born, is Grand Illusion.
Oh, yeah.
13 BC trad climb. That'd be fucking rad.
Is that in Tahoe?
I think, yeah. I think everybody should climb the hardest rock climb. Kids these days are totally fucked.
Yeah.
But I
That's
think
going to be a tall order for me.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, what was the hardest rock climb the year you were
89? I'm not sure. I'll have to look it up.
I think everybody should try.
Probably at least 14B.
Should aspire to rock climb the hardest rock climb the year they were born.
I like it.
Or at least get on it.
Yeah,
you know?
totally. That's a good goal for me. I think that's possible, actually. Because I think Just Do It was... When was Necessary Evil done?
I have no idea.
Neither do I.
1943. I don't know.
I think Just Do It was 92.
Yeah.
Cool. That's a great goal. I'm
Yeah.
gonna look into that.
Yeah,
That's
it's kind of a fun thing. It's like, it's a little bit arbitrary, but not arbitrary. It's like, it's just two things that happen at the same time.
Yeah. Nice. What about goals for your Shuteye Ridge trip? Do you have any specific goals for
Shh,
that?
don't tell people about that place. No.
You brought it up.
I didn't name names. Great. Now Shuteye's gonna be super crowded. I'm going next week.
This will already be done by you'll be back from your trip by the
Okay.
time this publishes. We'll be fine.
Um,
They'll all mob down there.
God, I just want to have fun. It looks awesome.
Very cool. That's a great goal.
Big chicken heads, runnels. I don't know. It's been 2 months of like wishing I was going to jiu-jitsu class. I woke up the other day. I was like, oh, I don't think I have any abs anymore. I was like trying to. One of the things you do in kickboxing is stand in front of somebody with your hands on your head and they punch you in the stomach.
What?
And I got so like, for me, I improved drastically at being able to take punches. It was pretty cool. You know, like at first you're like, oh God, a little less. And by the end I was like, more. You can go harder. And I like tensed up my abs the other day. I was like, oh, it's jelly. So, you know, I'd like to climb there's some really rad looking 12Cs there. I don't know if I'm going to be able to like rock climb 12C on like a new type of stone.
Yeah.
Who
granite.
knows? Yeah. I mean, I have 5 weeks to train for it, but
Are you going to?
I don't know. I'd like to think so.
Cool.
It's a nice idea.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear how your trip goes.
Yeah. It looks so fun. And it's a new area, and I'm excited to bring our dog there and climb with Andy in a pretty wilderness setting again and just see some new stuff. Yeah.
Nice. What is something that you have been especially grateful for lately?
Especially grateful for. My family has really come together a lot in the past 2 months. My sister's been in the hospital for the entire time.
Oh, wow.
She came down with acute sickness called Guillain-Barré, which is like a nervous system degeneration. So she was pretty much, no, not pretty much. She was fully paralyzed for like a whole month.
Oh, wow.
And she's just like over the hump now, starting to be able to like move her legs and arms, talk. She can talk now. She hadn't been able to speak for long time. She could like mouth words, but that's it.
Oh my gosh.
So just like the family support and stuff, that's been great. And we had tough times when it all went down, but it's really weird because nobody can go visit. Like my parents now can go to the window outside of our hospital room and like talk through the window through a phone.
Oh my gosh.
So that's been hard, but thankful. Like medicine, family, doctors, it's magic.
Is she expected to make a full recovery?
Yes, I think so. It's a long road for sure. And I think depending on what you would consider a full recovery, is she going to be able to get back to 100% of what she did before? Hopefully. I don't want to say no, but like it looks like it's a long, hard road. She'll be able to be independent again. She's got 2 crazy wild kids. So she'll probably need help with them. at least for the short term. Yeah, she'll be able to get back to her daily routine for sure. Yeah, that's been tough. I've been thankful for the climbing community because they've kept Rhino in business. That's been great. Been trying to give back a lot through like donations to various causes because of that. Like, oh, shit, people are treating me well. I'll, try and pay for it a little bit.
That's cool.
And it feels good. Oddly enough, feels good to do good. I don't know, just like living in a small town. It's not super small, but 100,000 is not big, where we still have some wild lands to go play in, and I can pop my head over my fence and talk with my neighbor. And yeah, we have not been affected in the same way as people in cities who are like on legit lockdown. Like, I can go to the river and play with the dog, and yeah, it's been fun.
Cool.
Yeah, it's been tough, but yeah. When I'm like sitting on the couch feeling bad for myself, going, man, I don't get to do the things I want, I like just think of my sister. Like, oh fuck, this is great.
Yeah.
How about you?
How about me?
Yeah.
What am I grateful for?
Yeah, like, I don't know, how long you've been living in the van? Like, has that given you different perspective? Like, would you rather be in the van or your previous living situation during this whole thing? Do you think it'll affect like your future of like choices?
It has been challenging being in the van for sure. I think it's challenging. I think everyone's facing challenges right now. Overall, I have been feeling incredibly fortunate. I landed in a really good spot. I was down in St. George when all this happened, and just it made the most sense to just kind of stay there. I had a lot of BLM land open to me to go camping at, and a friend of mine had bolted some routes at a really remote cliff. So we were able to go out there and do some climbing, and I bolted my first route, and that was really fun. It's been really challenging to work, to continue doing this. It's, it's a time where it's really hard to find Wi-Fi. I work so much better when I can go sit in a coffee shop and just hammer out work. And I've been I was poaching internet at the laundromat in St. George for 2 months.
Oh dear.
And it's like 90 degrees outside, and I'm like trying to find shade to park in and stuff. But overall, I feel so grateful. I really feel like I lucked out with the timing. I left a job, and pulled money out of some investments right before things kind of nosedived.
Nice.
And a lot of my coworkers have been laid off, and they're stuck at home in Bend, like a lot of my friends haven't been able to go climb at Smith because Smith was closed. And I happened to be down in Utah and kind of be at the right place at the right time, or at least like a decent place at the right time, Decent place at the wrong time? I don't know.
Yeah. Right place, wrong time.
Right.
Wrong place, right time. It works.
I think there's a sense of aimlessness that I think we're all facing, not being able to plan anything, not knowing where we're headed. That's been the most challenging part of it for me.
I keep on flashing to sci-fi movies where everybody goes into stasis for 4 months and they wake up when they're like almost at their destination. And part of me is like, fuck, I wish I could just do that. And part of me feels like I'm doing that. But then also life is pretty good right now. It's just different. Like me and Andy, we really do like to go out to eat because it's just like something about the difference between making it, like I can cook fine, I can make a nice dinner, I can make a better dinner at home.
I hope so.
I can make a better dinner at home than what we're gonna get. Sorry, all restaurants out there, but I can make a better dinner at home than what I'm gonna get out for the most part. When I was a chef, I always said, when people are like, I made this awesome dinner, and then they're like, oh, sorry, you could probably make it better, I always said, no, home cooks can always make better food. I can just do it faster. So, I don't know why I went on a tangent. But anyway, there's something about just going to a restaurant, drinking a beer, sitting across the table from somebody that you'd like, and just chit-chatting and solving the world's problems and Googling things that you have questions about together, where like we don't really do that at home. For some reason at home, we'll watch Netflix and eat food. And I don't know. I don't know why it's different when we go out. But it's nice. And then you don't have to do dishes. And, when it's just 2 people, I suck at just like cooking spaghetti. I don't suck at it, but I like don't do it. I always do like meat, vegetable, grain.
Okay, it
like
has to be
grain
more
type thing.
elaborate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's always like way more dishes to do. And it takes time, which I have plenty of right now. But man, we definitely like crave going out a little bit. We went to Untap, the food cart over there. And God, it was so nice just to get food from a food cart, sit down across the table and chat.
I had my first tacos and beer at Wild Ride after climbing last week. Smith finally opened back up, and I couldn't believe how good that felt.
Yeah,
Just to go get some tacos and sit and drink a beer, and exactly what there's like some level of intentionality that comes with that conversation when you're sitting down to share food with someone in that way. Like, God, it just felt good. It just felt nice.
Yeah.
And you're with one person, but then there's all these other people all around, and it's
the energy's different.
Yeah.
There's like energy flowing there, and that sounds woo-woo, but it's true.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole reason restaurants work, it's because they have an energy in there. Whether it's the music playing or everybody that's being jovial. Yeah, so we miss that. But other than that, like, life is pretty good.
nice.
Live in a nice little house, and it's been great weather.
This is my favorite time of year here.
Yep.
Any new recipes that you've tried out, or anything that's been fun to make? Have you...
I've been, got on the sourdough train, but my favorite thing to do has been to have like a real active starter and cut up champagne mangoes and then make pancakes with the starter with the mangoes inside.
Oh,
and that's been awesome.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. And I've been using a ton of rye flour, so it's
sourdough mango
like it's a
pancake.
rye sourdough mango pancake.
Oh my gosh! What do you put on top?
My face. No, we'll do maple syrup, sometimes cinnamon and sugar. Yeah, mostly just fork and knife. And,
nice.
Yeah, maple syrup is really good on there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about High 4?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Last thing before we wrap up here.
Yeah, it's kind of a new thing. We're dog lovers. And so our repair cream has worked repeatedly for raw dog elbows. You know how they get those calluses on their elbow? Especially with big dogs and big old dogs, they're laying down a lot and they get calluses on their elbow. And the repair cream, when it gets put on there, helps like soften that callus up and they start regrowing hair. So I really want to get that out there and help some dogs heal.
So High 4 is a new company?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. High 4 is a new company for pet care. It's going to use 2 of the same products as Rhino. It's going to use our repair cream for that. And then our split stick for like paws and little abrasions that your dog gets just from being crazy. Then our 2 new products are going to be snow release. So it'll be called Snow, S, capital N, capital O, lowercase w.
Okay.
It'll be like a spray-on type deal. You spray onto their fur when you go adventure in the winter wonderland, and it'll prevent their paws and their chest and wherever they get snowballs. It'll prevent that from happening. Pretty confident with that thing working. Tested it out a little bit. Should be good. And then we're going to do an insect repellent around tick time. Dogs get a ton of ticks on them and just get bugged by bugs. And so we have a recipe we're pretty confident in. It'll be all plant-based, just like everything else, and should also be a spray-on applicator. And we're going to try and use it on humans too, and just see if it, we'll probably use it on humans at the same time and before we release it, just to make sure doesn't suck to have on you. So yeah, that's kind of exciting.
And would that one potentially get added to the Rhino line as well?
That could get added to the Rhino line.
Okay,
for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I saw your logo, the High 4 logo.
Oh, yeah.
Loved it.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you were already working on the website. Where are we at with the process? When can people expect that stuff?
I got websites up and running. It does not have any actual, it has some Rhino products for sale on there.
Okay.
Labels are being designed and hopefully manufactured in a couple weeks. Yeah, I just have to work kind of on the copy and the wording of everything and marketing. And I might kind of make this more of a cooperative venture with some other people instead of me being the running force and idea behind it and creating all the content and all that. Kind of just want to let some other friends into it and let them run with some ideas.
Hand some of that stuff off.
Yeah. And just kind of see where it goes that way.
Cool.
Yeah. It's like same growth concept as Rhino, but different execution concept.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Anything else new for Rhino?
Well, Andy, my wife, I say Andy, my wife all the time. I don't know if I need to keep reiterating that. So I'll start over. Andy's been badgering me. No.
Third time's the charm.
We've been discussing making a hand soap so we can complete the Climb Wash Rhino line.
Nice.
Yeah, it'll be grapeseed oil based, earth-grown ingredients again, and just try and cut out all the bullshit of what you find out there right now and have a nice, clean, good smelling product.
Cool.
And then we're also... This one's been in the works for a while. I just don't know if there's really space. Get back to me on this, peoples. I kind of want to make like a real intensive skin repair cream, like a step up from Rhino Repair. I feel like Repair is like a skin conditioner almost, where I'd like a cream that really helps it's like purpose built to heal fucked up skin.
Okay.
There's some really interesting ingredients out there that could make that happen. I just need to really crack down, and right now it's not something I'm super like confident in or really want to just put out there. I want to make sure. I'm more of a person that has to like mull something over for a really, really, really long time. And then once I like flip the switch, it's like all full steam ahead. So I'm in the mulling over process.
Cool.
Like if it keeps sticking with me and it's still on the front of my mind, I'll go for it. But if it's something that I think about and I do some research and then it kind of drops off, to me, it's just like, it must not be that good of an idea.
Gotcha. What about plugs? So rhinoskinsolutions.com. You've got an Instagram. What's the best way for people to reach out to you if they have questions about skincare or products or anything like that?
A really good way is Instagram stories and tag us.
Okay.
Feel free to like put a skincare question out there on your Instagram story, tag Rhino. We'll get back to you with an answer, usually a picture or video associated with it.
Nice.
You can email us from the website. There's just a contact link. That's fine. Yeah, if you want like an immediate or a little bit faster response, you could use the chat function on the website. Anyway, we answer everything. So,
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Justin, I have loved your products since the very first iterations, and
Thanks.
It's been so fun to see this thing grow from your little closet
It's
with
been
duct
crazy.
tape and boxes to your warehouse and employees and all that sort of stuff. And I'm so excited to see what's next for you and for Rhino Skin Solutions.
You want to know the story that made me switch to a bigger shop?
Please. Yeah.
So it was like Christmas time, probably holiday season, super busy, filling a ton of bottles. The like stock of bottles was in the garage, and then all the like filled bottles and ready to ship were in one of the rooms of our house. And I was taking a box full of like 350 bottles from the garage to the house, and I hit the corner of the door and the box broke and all the bottles went everywhere. And I was just like, God, bleep and bleep, bleep. And that was when I was like, I got to get out of here. Yeah. So here we are.
Love it. Cool.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for your
been
time.
fun.
Really appreciate it.
Been good chatting in your home.
And I hope you have a great trip. I'm excited to hear about how it goes.
Yeah, lots of pictures.
Awesome. Cool. Look forward to seeing them.
Thanks.
All right. Take care.
Move with the rhythm. Shake it up, stop when the clock hits 13. Sing 1, 2, 3, 4. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it.